You've been lied to about real estate your whole life. And if you believe any of these 5 things, you're losing out on money. You're maybe even missing out on money without even knowing it. My name is Chris A. Williams, owner, investor, and entrepreneur. And in total, I've been in real estate for 5 years, and I've encompassed a lot of things in real estate, from being a real estate agent to a real estate agent company owner to a brokerage owner to being a real estate investor myself, doing multiple strategies. And in this video, I really want to talk to you about the top 5 myths that are out there when it comes to real estate and real estate investing. So one of the common things that people say is, I should wait for the market to crash, and ignore that noise, because there's so many people that did that. When I started in real estate, I started as an agent, and there were so many people that were like, okay, right now the economy is bad. You know, it was COVID when I first started. So they're like, everything's very unpredictable. The market's gonna crash. I'm gonna wait till the market crashes and I'm gonna get houses at a discount. Well, guess what happened? It's years later, the market still hasn't crashed. Those same exact houses that they were waiting to get a discount on, they've doubled, sometimes even tripled in price.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
And interest rates have also risen, making homes even more expensive. And the same exact people that were saying that as traditional home buyers, they still haven't even purchased a property. And the same people who said that as real estate investors, they missed out on a great amount of deals. So my suggestion would be, don't wait on something that you have no idea is going to happen. The thing is, there has been a market crash before, yes, like back in '08, things like that. But
has it happened yet?
In America, we learn from our mistakes. So that's why when something crazy like COVID can happen, we didn't have another market crash. Even when literally everything changed during that time, we still didn't have a market crash, because we learned from our mistakes. We're not going to allow the same things to happen. So I would just say, ignore what the market is doing. Find great deals. If you're a real estate investor, get them at great prices, maximize your profits. And if you're a traditional home buyer, don't wait for something, because you never really know what could happen. What we do know though is that prices are just going to constantly keep on going up and up and up. Prices, rent, things like that. So what are you going to do about it? You've got to lock in now. And even if you feel like rates like that are high, whatever, you still have the option to refinance. I don't like that phrase that they say, date the rate, marry the house, because I'm not really a fan of that. But there is some truth to that. At least when you lock in your home, yes, you may feel like you quote unquote over purchased for it at the time. You may feel that quote unquote the rate is too high, but guess what? If rates go down, you can always refinance into a lower rate. But we know with prices still going up, it's better to purchase it now than wait years later. Even if there is a lower rate years later, just doing the math, you would save money purchasing now than at a higher price point. Number 2 thing that people always say is, you need 20% down to buy a home. I call it cap. That is not true. You don't need 20% down to purchase a home. Even if you're a real estate investor, you don't need 20% down to purchase a home. There's so many different ways. But first, I want to talk about if you're a traditional home buyer. There's a lot of first-time home buyer options, FHA, VHDA, all these grants, things like that, where you don't need a 20% down. A lot of times you need 3%, 3.5%, 5%, 10%. There's even ones 1%, ones where you can get your down payment prorated, where you don't have to pay it up front. Like, there's just so many different options, because let's be real. If our average price is $300K, which it is in our area, 20% of that is $60K. That's expecting a lot for a first-time home buyer to have $60K in their bank account. Most people don't have that. So if that was the case, most people wouldn't be purchasing homes. So there's so many ways to get around that 20% down. Now let's talk about traditional home buyer. But if we're talking about a real estate investor, you may say, well, Chris, these are risky loans, so of course there should be a higher down payment. That's how it used to be. That's not if you're getting creative. Emphasis on creative. If you haven't watched my videos on creative financing, watch those, because that's one method right there in which you can almost eliminate your entry fee, where you don't really have to pay much. Like, I brought deals where my entry fee was $3,500, some even less than that, you know. So there's so many different possible ways to get real estate without having to shell out so much money. That's creative financing. If you get a great private money lender, you can use OPM. Like, there's so many different ways to get in real estate and real estate investing without having to put tens of thousands of dollars down. Okay, all right. So PSA, so we did some research, and it looks like a lot of people that are watching, you're not subscribed to the channel. So please do me a favor, because I'm giving you guys these free videos, free high-level information on real estate and real estate investing. Please, just for me. All you gotta do is click the subscribe button, just subscribe to the channel. Oh, also, just bonus, just share it with a friend who can find this helpful. Thank you. So number 3, a play on to the previous point that we just talked about. Number three, a lot of people will say you need a lot of money to get started in real estate investing. And again, I'm gonna call it cap. That is not true. You don't need a ton of money. Yeah, there are cases in which you do want to have a lot of capital if you are getting into a real estate investment deal. But if you're just doing single family residential, even if you're doing flips or you're doing buying holes and things like that, you don't need a ton of money to shell out. Let's just say there's a deal where there's a higher entry fee. You could still use OPM. OPM meaning other people's money to cover that initial cost, but it's just all about structuring your deal properly. And that's why the education is just so important. Me personally, I ran into so many dilemmas. I ran into so many things where I wanted to do real estate investing, but the things that I was reading at the time was just saying those things like you needed all this money down, you needed all this capital. I was like, well, I don't really want to shell out all that capital. I had PTSD from being broke, so I wanted to have a substantial amount in my bank account. So I just started thinking around like, what are different ways? What are alternative ways? And that's how I started learning about these different methods, just kind of because I was forced to, because I still wanted to do real estate investing. And from the information that I've learned and that I've done myself, I wanted to just give that to you all. Number four, the 70% rule. People say always use the 70% rule when investing in real estate. And no, I don't agree with that. I personally never understood the 70% rule, because what is in the 70%? Where does the 70% come from? And if you're not aware of the 70% rule, what the 70% rule means, to do that formula, your MAO is going to be your ARV times 70% of the ARV minus your rehab cost, and that equals your MAO, also known as your max allowable offer. And like I said, I just never understood what that 70% entailed, so it just didn't make much sense to me. I'm like, okay, well, shouldn't it be subjective based on the location? Like, what if we are comparing one property that's on the main street and it's not in an appealing area versus a property that's an oceanfront property? Like, how can they both get the same formula? It just doesn't make the most sense for me. But the 70% rule, they say always use that, and I'm not a fan of that. I think there's way better formulas out there. I use a different formula for my real estate investments, and I usually have higher profits, higher cash on cash returns, and it makes more sense for me. But I think the 70% rule can be a start. But if you talk to a lot of other investors, they aren't necessarily sticking to the 70% rule either.
Screw that.
Right. Screw that.
And number five, a common thing that people will say is that you can use any real estate agent or no real estate agent when it comes to buying or selling a home. And obviously I'm going to sound biased when I say this, because I own a real estate company, even though I'm not necessarily a day-to-day real estate agent myself anymore. But I promise you, when I sell my homes, I use a real estate agent myself. So you always should be using a real estate agent anytime you're doing real estate investing, and especially if you are a traditional home buyer or traditional home seller. The reason for that is because these real estate agents, they're putting in the work, they're putting in the grind on a day-to-day basis. They are masters of the market. Even if they're brand new, they're still masters of the market, because you are not doing that full time. I'll give you some exception if you are a higher level real estate investor, but if you're a high level real estate investor, you should be focusing on scaling your business, so you don't have the time to be doing the research like a real estate agent is doing. Same reason why you shouldn't be doing crawl space or things like that, even though it could quote unquote save you money. Is it really? Because all your time that you're spending doing that, you're actually losing money. We should be spending that time finding deals and securing more deals, but I digress on that point. So that's real estate investors. If you're a traditional home buyer, traditional home seller, come on now, what are you doing? Especially if this is one of your first time selling a property, one of your first times purchasing a property. If you're a home buyer, you typically don't even have to pay your agent. It's usually going to be the listing side that pays your agent. So why would you not use a real estate agent there? And even if you did have to pay your agent, you got to think, what are you paying them for? You're paying them for their expertise. You're paying them to guide you through the process. You're paying them for their negotiation power. But I think this is why it's super important that you do choose the right agent. A lot of times people say these things because they chose a bad agent, unfortunately. And you may say, well, how was I supposed to know that's a bad agent or that's a good agent? Well, you should do your research on that agent. Check their reviews. Do they have 5-star testimonials? Do you have people that vouch for them? Are they constantly present? Do they have a good name in the area? These are all things that you should check out when it comes to choosing your agent. So that's on the buy side, right? Similar things on the sell side. If you're, and this is what we hear a lot of times too, what my agents hear is we'll run into FSBOs, for sale by owners. So they're like, I don't want to list my home with the agent because I want to save money and I don't want to pay commissions. All right, well, one, when you're selling your home, more than likely you're gonna have to pay a buyer's agent commission, because most buyers have an agent that's representing them. That agent's driving them all around. They want to be compensated for that, and a lot of buyers just don't have the funds to be able to pay their closing costs, their down payment, and pay their agent. That's asking a lot. So that cost gets passed on to the seller. So seller, you're already paying a buyer's agent commission. Now, if you are only paying a buyer's agent commission, you're trying to market the home yourself, you got to think, what marketing power do you have?
You don't.
Think, how much money are agents shelling out to market homes? Shelling out a lot of money, and they're doing a lot of work. They're spending a lot of their resources on marketing their listings. That's why homes with agents sell dramatically faster than homes for sale by owners. And that's why statistics say that for sale by owners typically do end up listing with the agent after some time. But you have to think also, if you're a home seller, while you're holding the home all that time waiting for it to sell, guess what? You're having to make mortgage payments. Okay, if your home is paid off, guess what? You still got taxes. You still got utilities. You still have all these things that you do have. You still have upkeep of the property that you still have to pay. So even if you do eventually sell your home and it takes you 24 months to sell your home versus if it took you 2 months with an agent, more than likely you would have saved money with, even if you're paying that full commission to your agent, because lesser time, lesser things to pay. These are the top 5 myths that I hear when it comes to real estate and real estate investing. If you've heard any of these myths, let me know exactly what you think. And if there's some other myths that you want me to cover, let me know about those too. I would love to make a part 2 or even make a series for these type of videos. And if you're interested in anything real estate investing focused, watch the next video. Bye.